Talking about other legislative matters, not Keystone, but that do have some bipartisan support and may come to the President's desk. There is an effort in the House and Senate to, under the Affordable Care Act, place a 40-hour work week as opposed to a 30-hour work week to avoid the mandate for businesses with fewer than 50 employees. So they don't go up against that. What is the administration's position on that fine-tuning of that aspect of the Affordable Care Act?
Well, my understanding, I actually think this is something that Republicans have talked about before and something that we've been pretty critical of in the past. It is the view of this administration that this would actually, that this proposed change would actually do a lot of harm, not just to the Affordable Care Act, but also to a substantial number of workers across the country. Ironically, you know, at least a couple of conservative thinkers happen to agree that we're right. That Mr. Levin, who writes for the National Review, has said that this seems likely to be worse than doing nothing, this Republican proposal. Now, the irony here is that this is somebody who I assume is not exactly an enthusiastic advocate of the Affordable Care Act, but yet he is suggesting that the proposed Republican change is even worse than the Affordable Care Act. I assume there's no worse criticism that could be leveled by one Republican toward another than to say that something is worse than the Affordable Care Act, but yet that is the criticism that's been lodged at this Republican proposal.
What do the administration believe is the policy error of this approach? And
well,
what would it make worse?
Well, the issue is essentially that we would be putting even more workers in a situation where we could see some employers cutting back on their hours to try to avoid the requirement of providing them quality health insurance. That's what many responsible business owners, and the majority of responsible business owners across the country already do. But there are some who are looking for loopholes where they can try to avoid taking that responsibility. And we certainly don't believe that we should make that easier. That's not good for the Affordable Care Act. It's not good for these workers. That's a position that's long been articulated by this White House, and it's also a position that's articulated by a number of leading conservative thinkers.
And is it the administration's point of view that this really isn't a problem, that there is a sort of an anecdotal sense that it's a problem, that employers are artificially keeping hours down, but in fact that's not what's happening?
Well, I think it's something that I think is hard to quantify and hard to generalize about. I certainly wouldn't quibble with the individual experience that somebody cites, but I think sometimes it's hard to see inside the mind of an employer and to determine why they're making different staffing decisions. What's clear is that the temptation that some employers might have would only be sweetened significantly if this Republican change were to be put into place.